Welcome to this explainer. If you're an IMG laser-focused on matching into a U.S. medical residency, you already know the academic grind is, well, it's brutal. But today, we're flipping the script. We're looking at a totally different side of the equation, the true comprehensive financial commitment of the 2026 USMLE journey. So grab a notebook, because we are breaking down the exact numbers.
Let me ask you right out of the gate, how much does the USMLE really cost for an IMG in 2026? If you're doing some quick mental math based on, what you've seen floating around on Reddit or student forums, I can almost guarantee you're drastically underestimating this number.
$25,340. Yeah, you heard that right. That is the realistic, upper-end total cost of the USMLE journey for an international medical graduate. I know, that's some serious sticker shock. But we aren't just talking about paying a registration fee and taking a test on a Saturday. We're looking at a massive, multi-year financial commitment.
Okay, let's dive into this. A lot of IMGs initially just budget for the base exams, right? They think, okay, I'll spend roughly $2,700 and I'm good to go. But honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The reality? The full journey actually costs anywhere from $21,000 to over $25,000, with this huge chunk of hidden expenses lurking right beneath the surface.
So let's start at the beginning. Section 1, Core Exams and ECFMG Certification.
Here's exactly what those core exams will cost you in 2026. Step 1 is going to run you $905, and that includes the base fee plus the international surcharge. Step 2 CK, that's $930. Now, while Step 3 isn't technically required for ECFMG certification, let's be real, most IMGs complete it before or during applications to stay competitive, and that costs $955 with no international surcharge. You add those up and you hit that $2,790 mark. But remember, this is literally just the very first layer of our budget.
And right away, this introduces a unique financial hurdle for IMGs, because to even take these exams and get certified, you've got to go through the ECFMG. First up, the application itself is a one-time fee of $560. Then there's a $200 credential verification fee. And finally, applying to a pathway for ECFMG certification so you can actually enter the match, well, that's going to cost you $925. That stacks up to a hefty $1,685. And it's absolutely crucial to point out that this is an entire category of costs that U.S. medical graduates simply do not have to worry about.
Moving right along to Section 2, Prep and Proficiency Costs.
When it comes to actually studying for these exams, you're looking at an estimated prep cost of $2,200 to $3,000. High-quality resources, stuff like premium question banks, self-assessments, review books, practice exams, they're going to eat up roughly 20 to 25% of your overall budget. And listen, with Step 1 now being pass-fail, your Step 2 CK score carries unprecedented weight. So skimping on top-tier prep materials, it just isn't an option if you want to be competitive. And please, whatever you do, don't forget the OET Medicine exam. This required English proficiency test adds another $400 to $500 to your budget. It is a mandatory step for the 2026 pathways, regardless of your citizenship or what your native language is, and it is so often left out of those informal back-of-the-napkin calculations we all do. Now we hit the big one, Section 3, the hidden USCE expense.
Now, what's really interesting here is when you look at how the entire budget is distributed, one expense just completely towers above the rest. USCE, United States Clinical Experience, comes in at $7,500. It is the single largest slice of your financial pie by far, vastly outpacing your prep, your ECFMG fees, and even your exam fees combined.
Let's break down exactly why that USCE slice is so incredibly huge. The recommended minimum duration is 3 months. At roughly $1,500 a month in rotation fees alone, you're at $4,500. Then, add in a pretty conservative estimate of $1,000 a month for living expenses, housing, food, travel, visa processing, and you hit that massive $7,500 mark. Now, you might be thinking, well, USCE isn't legally mandatory for ECFMG certification, right? True, but the data is crystal clear. Match rates for IMGs with USCE are 65% higher. In 2026, to prove you can actually function in the U.S. healthcare system, this expense is practically a requirement.
All right, let's keep going. Section 4, the Residency Application Phase.
Because unfortunately, the financial commitment certainly doesn't end after you pass the exams. First, you need an ERAS token for about $165, your electronic transcript is around $80, and NRMP match registration is another $70.
Okay, manageable. But here is the major hurdle. IMGs absolutely must apply broadly to maximize their chances. Applying to 150 programs, that'll cost you between $3,250 and $3,500. Throw in interview travel, because even with virtual options these days, in-person travel is often necessary, and that adds another $2,300 to $3,000 to the pile.
And we also need to factor in this specific number, $1,050. What's this for? Research. In today's highly competitive landscape, having research publications on your CV is increasingly vital. The average cost per publication, when you factor in article processing charges, professional editing, and submission fees, is about $350. The recommended minimum is 3 publications, which brings us to that $1,050 total.
I know. Take a deep breath. Let's look at Section 5, Strategies to Manage Costs.
I know looking at all these numbers at once feels totally overwhelming, but let's shift to some highly pragmatic strategies to manage them. First up, a single exam retake immediately adds nearly $1,000 to your total cost, and that is just the registration fee. It doesn't even include the extra months of living expenses and buying new study materials. Delivering some tough love here, passing on the first attempt is absolutely the best way to keep your budget under control. Prepare thoroughly and do not rush into the exam until you are truly ready.
So, the crucial point is that you must be financially strategic from day one. Start budgeting 12 to 24 months before you even begin your exams. Try to optimize your USCE by targeting cost-effective cities or finding unpaid community hospital rotations where they don't charge those hefty fees. Share your housing with other IMGs during your clinicals, utilize virtual interviews whenever they're offered to save on flights and hotels, and definitely actively seek out ECFMG scholarships. Every single one of these choices chips away at that intimidating $25,000 total.
You really have to reinforce a long-term investment perspective here. As noted by MedVinjily, while the upfront cost of USMLE may exceed $25,000, successful residency placement provides substantial career growth. Yes, the expense upfront is massive, but the professional and financial returns of landing a U.S. medical residency are incredible. It's a total game changer.
So I'll leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Will you treat this $25,000 USMLE journey as just a giant expense, or will you plan strategically and treat it as your most crucial career investment? Having financial clarity is absolutely essential, and understanding these real, hard numbers today is your very first step toward match success in 2026. Thanks so much for learning with me, and best of luck on your journey.